I woke up this morning to a view of the sky, and it was completely blue, just like it is right now. And I jumped out of bed, and I went and I turned on my video camera that's been filming the sky, because I've been filming the sky the last 4 or 5 days. I started it because there had been chemtrails consistently for the last few months, and I would always think I need to record these on time-lapse so I can see how they develop into clouds. And so I started after it rained, the last time it rained, thinking that I was going to catch a bunch of chemtrails. In the last 4 days, there's been zero. I find that really odd. And actually, my wife and I have noticed, Caro and I have noticed, that walking at night, there's way more stars than is normally visible. We can see tons of constellations, and even from our bed looking out, we can see stars through the windows, which I don't think we've ever been able to see till just recently. So it's interesting that there is massive amount of spraying, and now everything is clean and clear. So I'm wondering what they're going to be doing after this eclipse. But anyways, the first thought in my head while looking at this beautiful blue sky, because I felt really satisfied when I looked at the sky. The first thought is, why are we intending on and manifesting abundance when abundance is such a small step on the journey? Abundance isn't really satisfying, because if we're just hoping for more, and we're intending on abundance, more money, more muscles, more hair, more freedom, more business. I mean, that's what that word business means, right? Busyness. It's literally how it's spelled. Busyness is how business is spelled. And I think that that's an illusion. That's a dangling carrot that we put in front of ourselves to manifest and create abundance, because that's all external. And so one thing about this eclipse, there's a lot of fear-mongering going on, and whether you should be outside or not, yada, yada, yada. But if we look at it symbolically, essentially, whenever the sun's taken away from us, that gives us an opportunity to trust that the light is still there, that it is going to rise again tomorrow, and especially that we are the carriers of light, that the light is always within us. And so that's one symbolic lesson from this eclipse, is that as whatever it is, the moon or whatever, is going to cover the light, that we can trust, because everything is about the state of consciousness. What is the state of consciousness when this is happening? If we are trusting that the light is within us, and we're not seeking external validation, we're not seeking external things, we're not seeking abundance, then we have achieved enlightenment, right? That's the punchline. It's not necessarily so easy to be, though. Sorry, I closed my app. But back to abundance. Like, why are we actually intending on abundance? When, if I think of words like abundance, I'm thinking of more. I'm thinking of busier. I'm thinking of like even more problems. The bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck, right? So if we're thinking of more, that means more problems. There's a few exercises that I have in my Skillful Psyche lessons in my VIP membership. One is called What Does Abundance Mean to Me?, which really gets into the deep level of what do we actually mean by abundance, because usually we're not seeking more. We're just not. And then the other one's called Creating Money. And I forget which one of those two this exercise was in. But essentially, you get to the root cause. You get to the root. It's not really a cause. It's a root. It's based off of root cause analysis, which is a way that you can diagnose problems within your business, where you just keep on asking yourself why, right? So if a screw broke in the machine, you ask yourself why. Why did the screw break? And you could get the answer that the machinist put it in wrong. And then by screw, I mean drill, really. Why did the drill break? The machinist put it in wrong. And then you ask why again. Why did the machinist put it in wrong? Oh, because he didn't know how to do it when this specific event happened. Why didn't he know how to do it? Because he wasn't trained properly. Why wasn't he trained properly? Oh, because the trainer gets a certain amount of sick days a year, and when this person was supposed to get trained on this specific event, the trainer had a sick day, which is allowable by the company. And then so the company can really do some root cause analysis and realize that it's actually fixing or firing the machinist isn't going to solve the problem, and that the actual problem was created by some sort of rule or policy that they have that can be easily fixed, right? They just need to figure out a way to cover that trainer's sick days to make sure that the training of everybody gets done. That was just a quick example, but we can do that with what we're intending and what we're manifesting as well. If we're manifesting more abundance, right? That's just the step. That's just what we think. That's what we can perceive. That's superficial. So if we're grasping for more money, for instance, why? Why do we crave more money? What is it about the money? What are you going to do with it? And then we can start diagnosing our own desires. Root desire analysis is what I believe I called it in some of these lessons in the Skillful Psyche courses. Root desire analysis. And once we can start going into our desires, like money, because it can buy me a new car. Well, what does a new car mean to you? Why are you searching for that? Freedom, right? Okay, why are you searching for freedom? Well, because I'm too busy, or I'm feeling constricted because I work and I go to school and I watch the kids. And so then you ask, like, well, why are you feeling constricted? Why this? Why that? And you eventually get to a point, which is the cool part. You get to a point where you're at the root. You're at the root of what you're truly seeking. And you can then ask the question, okay, besides more money, or besides the car, besides all of these steps, what can I do now to achieve the root desire? And usually all of that stuff is free, because in the end, all of the answers are within self. It's never a change of the external environment. It's always a change of perception, a change of what you are doing on a daily basis. And you have control of that. You have access to that. I'm just reading Darian the Great, otherwise known as Tonto. I've called into my experience all of the abundance that we spoke about a few years ago. It's time to transition. I have money and houses. It's time to look in again. So here's the thing. Why do you desire what you desire? Freedom is, do not buy anything that you have to go to work for. Just reading some comments here. So Jim Carrey once said, I wish everybody, something like this, I wish everybody could be rich and famous so that they can see that it doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter. Nothing changes. I wish everybody can be rich and famous so that they can see that nothing changes, is what I believe the line is. And I also know A-list celebrities and really successful people as well. They all say the same thing. a lot of the times, a lot of the reasons why they're A-list celebrity is because they're chasing, right? They're filling a void, and a lot of them sell their soul in order to get the things that they have been searching for, and then just to quickly realize that it does nothing is the cosmic giggle, as they say. But I say all this to impress upon you that wishing for abundance is a clue. Just look at it as a clue. And that hoping for and trusting in happiness, joy, satisfaction, security, those are the words that I feel as you mature into this. Just trying to change hands. As you mature into this manifestation game, this creatorship, taking responsibility for your life, as you mature into it and start figuring it out, you'll start resonating around states of being as opposed to having more things. And usually when you start wishing for the right stuff, joy, satisfaction, happiness, evolution, ascension, comfort, stability, even stability, in order to create those things, you're more tolerant. I'll go into what I was going to say. You're more tolerant of the scenarios that cause them. Because in order to achieve joy, happiness, comfort, stability, ascension, you recognize the need for challenge, villains, discomfort, fear. All of that is necessary. I'm looking into being somebody. Somebody else or somebody yourself. I have the money now, I don't need to work. And yes, I have arrived at the same conclusion. The ones who reach the highest do so often from a space of insecurity. There's this documentary I saw once, I think it was on Netflix, it's called Happy People. And it's about these people. So when you look at the title, I think it was just called Happy People. When you look at the title and you have an imagination of what that means, and then you start watching the documentary, and I believe it was about people in Siberia. And from what we're taught in history about Siberia, that's like where they sent all the prisoners in the past because it was such rough conditions. It was well below freezing temperatures, very little life going on in terms of like flourishing animal life, very hard standards for life. Yet the people there found happiness. And it's possible. And so if we're worried about the little things in our life, it's usually just because we haven't determined to marry. We haven't determined to be committed to the path of ascending our levels of consciousness. We haven't realized the purpose of life. And we're still chasing what we're taught gives us gratification. We're taught by looking at the idols that are fed to us in music and movies and TV and little dolls that have pink Corvettes, all of that stuff, and a perfect husband and yada, yada, yada. All of that stuff is taught to us that when we reach this, we will find bliss. And then it's just this perpetual thing of, well, maybe it's a new video game, or maybe it's a new car, or maybe it's I win a championship and I train for 6 years so that I can be the best runner in my state. And then it's state championships, and then it's national championships, then it's international. And it's just constant chasing in all the different aspects of life until somebody has a midlife crisis, as they call it. And that's essentially the waking up of the human being after a few decades of living here and realizing that none of this none of this fucking shit matters. Friedrich Nietzsche said, there's more wisdom, something like this. I don't know if I have the exact words. There's more knowledge within your body than there is in any philosophy. And my interpretation of that is that we can learn from society, we can learn from teachers, we can learn from masters, we can even learn from our parents and grandparents how it is to be, how it is to live. We can find it in religion. We can find it in all of these areas of life telling us what we should be doing. Even in myself, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And the invitation is to listen within. Listen to yourself. Listen to your body, because it starts in the body and then we transmute that into meaning in the mind, which then gives feedback back into the body to produce action. It gives us motivation to go in a certain direction. There's more wisdom and knowledge in yourself than there is in any philosophy. And I was thinking about that, particularly having to do with this eclipse, because there's so many people talking about, should you watch it? Should you stay indoors? Should you meditate? Should you fast? What should you eat? What should you not eat? Do we need to be fearful? Do we listen to the ancients and do what they do? Or was it the kings that were fooling everybody? We can definitely take in wisdom and knowledge and teachings, but we must filter it and integrate it. Let me say that again. We must integrate it through our own filters. We must let it sit within ourselves and listen to that, because ultimately we're all living in completely, how can I say this? We're all living different universes. Every single one of our lives are a completely different reality, and we're all here bumping into each other. We are the ones we've been waiting for, as said in the comments. We are all in our own world. I just passed an overpass because I'm walking next to the railroad tracks. If you go over an overpass and you look at all the cars passing, this is actually a great practice to do. Next time you walk over an overpass, just stare down at all of the cars. You're going to see how many hundreds in a few minutes, but how many thousands of cars, basically infinite amounts of cars, zooming by you, and each and every single one of them are isolated in their own bubble, in their own state of being. They each have different thoughts. They each have different emotions. There's so many different things happening in each and every single car that drives by. And it's a really good metaphor for what we're all doing here on this thing called life. We're all just living completely different realities. And every single event that happens outside of us means something different to every single one of us. And it's really cool, because then the question is, why is there different people? Why, like, what's the purpose of having more than one of us? And And right now we're at a stage of consciousness. We're experiencing individual identities. We're experiencing three-dimensional space that travels in the fourth dimension of time linearly in one direction from past to future. But we really only experience present moment ever. We're never ever experiencing the past. We're never ever experiencing the future. We call those things memories and premonitions, or we can even tie emotions to the past, such as anger that something happened, or fear that something's going to happen, or anticipation that something's going to happen, and gratification that something did happen on the positive note. And if you think about a bunch of bubbles that were conjoined together, if you have one bubble, that's like one dimension. If you put a bunch of bubbles around it, that makes a new shape, right? Where you've got that original bubble, you have all the bubbles around it, and then you have the bubble that encompasses all of the bubbles. And if you put even more bubbles on top of that, then you get bigger and bigger dimensions. The larger dimensions encompass the smaller dimensions. And that's essentially the teaching of the flower of life, or sacred geometry, that there's dimensions within dimensions, and we have access easily to the dimension that we reside in. Some of us humans have access to other dimensions, and when you go up in dimensions, there's different laws that rule those dimensions. So for instance, in this dimension, we travel through physical space. We have mobility within the physical realm. There is physical matter. We cannot travel through time, though. We must go to a different dimension to have access to different moments in time, because all of time is existing now. It's everything that is going to happen has already happened. Everything that has happened is happening. Everything that's going to happen is happening as well, happening now. And so there are some level of consciousness, there's some, if you imagine us as a bubble, there's some aspect of us that has access to travel through our memories, through our timelines, and witness life, what we're experiencing as life, through us. And that's another dimension where, right in this dimension, we have access to our physical capability. In other dimensions, we have access to many people's consciousness. And there's even humans that can do these things. They can go into realms where they have access to the consciousness of other people that either have existed, will exist, and definitely they're all existing now. It's just getting access, choosing into that information, being open, being aware that that exists, and tuning our instrument so that we can walk through the portals and gain access to these other dimensions, this other knowledge, this other way of being. Somebody said smells or pictures or songs can bring us into a different timeline instantly. That is all vibration. It's all frequency, which emotions, our senses are like a switch to our emotions, and then our emotions are like the steering wheel. Should I say just emotions, or emotions in our mind? I would say our entire psyche, our state of consciousness, rather, which encompasses our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. But our state of consciousness is what gains us access to these dimensions, which is why everybody's always talking about raising your vibes. And that can be done with frequency. Silver, did you step on a piece of glass or something? Which is why sound healing's a thing. It's why music's a thing. Music's been hijacked. Some of you know this. So is just the frequency of all these waves and light. We started off talking about chemtrails. It's a way to hijack the frequency of light. I forget the scientist, but he was shining light through pictures. So we would take, forget if it was a frog egg or what's the other thing? It's not a newt, it's a I want to say salmon, but it's not that. Salamander? Yeah, so I think he was taking either frog eggs or salamander eggs. And if it was a frog egg, he was putting a picture of a salamander above it and shining a light through it. And then the frog egg turned into a salamander egg. And then, I forget if it was either salamander or frog. I forget if it was one way or the other. And then that original frog egg grows up to be an adult salamander. And then they mate with other frog eggs growing up to be salamanders. And then they produce offspring that are salamanders. So light traveling through different filters can completely impact the DNA of the eggs. This experiment should be relatively easy to find. He also was doing things like, I believe it was the same scientist, like taking like a sick raspberry plant and then having like a fresh raspberry plant like picture and shining light through the picture into the plant, and then it was healing the plant. And I remember from a lot of these light experiments, they couldn't use glass to do a lot of this stuff. They had to shine the light through quartz crystal because the glass was breaking the light. And that's when I started really paying attention to whether I should be getting sun through glass indoors or getting outside. Because in these experiments, if you're not able to shine light through in a pure fashion in a scientific experiment, then it's likely that in reality, in our homes, we are much better off going outside into the pure light, which then signals why they would be spraying stuff into the air to block out the sun. So on Wednesday, everybody, if you're still here, Wednesday, well, first of all, a lot of the stuff I talked about was in the Skillful Psyche course material. If you go to my website, you can get access to that, 2 days free. Wednesday, I'm going live on Human Garage channel, and I think I'm going to be teaching a eye kriya, or at least that's where I'm going to start the conversation. If it doesn't go elsewhere, then I'm probably going to be teaching a kriya having to do with the eyes. That's at noon Pacific time on Wednesday. Of course, the recording is going to be available there and on my YouTube channel as well. But when we work with our eyes, we actually can see, we can perceive more, which is important because we're all here as separate entities, and being very strict in our perception, in our vision, offers just one view of this plane of existence. And when you have one view, you have one dimension. And so the more that we can see through other lenses, including the lenses that contradict our current lenses, the more we can open up to that, the more dimensionality and versatility we have within this reality.